Kia ora, I'm Quinten, and this is my ride story. At the start of 2022, it was looking like I would have some time off work, which I needed to find something to do with. For a long time after having heard about some of my parents' friends completing the tour of Aotearoa, I have been interested in it myself. The tour of Aotearoa is a bikepacking trip stretching 3,000 kilometres from Cape Reinga to Bluff that follows a combination of cycle trails, tracks, paths and lanes. It is a self-supported event in which competitors are in a no time frame and following the course is to each individual's desire. Due to the COVID landscape at the time, numbers had been slowly dropping, so there was plenty of space in the 100-person waves that started in February. I fully committed to the event 2 weeks prior to my start date. Then it was all about getting my bike and gear ready. I managed to borrow gear and information from people who had already done the event or similar events. This really helped me, as although I had never done a trip of more than 2 nights bikepacking, I had all the gear and specific items that would help me complete the much longer trip. I flew up to Auckland a day prior to the event starting and got aboard a pre-organised shuttle that would take us up to Northland. Upon arriving at the campsite near Cape Reinga, I started putting my bike back together from the box I had used to fly with it. This was actually the first time I had put all my gear on my bike, and although I was pretty sure it was all going to fit, it was definitely a relief once everything was on there. Beginning the event was quite exciting, but I definitely didn't know what I was in for. Prior to entering, I hadn't done much training and really hadn't ever ridden for more than 100 kilometres at a time. Maybe because of this, or from going too hard over the first few days, I ended up getting quite sick. As COVID was beginning to creep into New Zealand, this was quite concerning as I really didn't want to have to isolate away from home. Slowly I managed to get into a groove, helped by riding with some awesome people. I started being able to rack up some big Ks and long days. Getting through to the Wanganui River was a really awesome point, as it was the first bit of single track for a while and really beautiful. Having made it to Wellington, I definitely felt a sense of relief that I was done with the North Island and was heading back to the South Island, where I have spent most of my life. By now, I was starting to feel quite strong on my bike and was getting the hang of nutrition, which was a super important component. For the most part, I was staying in Airbnbs or holiday parks, which I would call during the day, having decided that that's where I would get to that night and organise a way of me being able to get in after hours, as that's when I would typically get there. At Reefton, the 2 guys who I'd been riding with on and off decided not to go over Big River Track and instead take a detour. This meant for the rest of the journey I was riding by myself. Pedaling down the west coast was definitely a highlight, as the course was really good and there was little road or air traffic to disrupt the serenity. However, getting off the west coast was a different story, as I experienced the full force of the Wild West. Biking up Haas Pass was certainly the hardest bit of the whole trip for me, as I was hit with the worst rain I have ever experienced, not aided by possibly the steepest uphill. Making it onto the Earnslaw the following day and participating in the buffet at Walter Peak Station was all time, and set me up to finish the following day having ridden late into that night. The final day was pretty cruisy, but I still had some decent kilometres to put behind me. When I made it to Bluff, I was stoked to have finished and finally be off my bike after 15 days and 8 hours. Some friends met me in Bluff and dropped me off at the airport to fly back home to Christchurch that afternoon. My most important piece of kit was definitely my bike. It is a Yoeleo M29, which I built up in 2017 with the thought that at some point I might be able to do an event like the Tour of Aotearoa on it. At the time I was in high school and didn't have a huge amount of money, so this was a great option. I kitted it out with XT brakes, drivetrain and wheels, and also put a Fox 32 fork on it. I haven't had an issue since building it and have definitely put it through its paces on the Port Hills of Christchurch. When I bought the frame, I was intrigued as to whether it would hold up, but the warranty behind it and the time I've spent on it have proven it a great purchase. I'm now looking forward to getting myself a gravel bike so that I could compete in similar events, and I'm strongly considering a Yoeleo frame again.